I'm with Professor Richard Wilding, who is Professor of Supply Chain Strategy here at Cranfield, and we're going to talk about an article on managing outsourcing risks in the Chinese fashion industry. So, Richard, in the article, you talk a lot about the relationship between value and risk, and this seems to lie at the foundation of what you were looking at. Could you explain a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, it's a really important concept to think that the main thing when you're looking at a supply chain and the supply chain strategy, it has to be linked to the competitive strategy of the organisation. Now, the two organisations that we were actually looking at, one of these organisations was for high-tech products, high-tech clothing products. Mm-hmm. The other one was for high-fashion clothing products, and these are completely different in nature, and therefore by understanding what drove value in the marketplace, the supply chain and the risk dimensions of that supply chain had to be designed accordingly. So that was really the key focus that we had to sort of look at when we were undertaking research for this article.
Okay, so could you tell me a little bit about how the research was carried out?
Well, the way we did it was we actually looked at two organisations who had really very different characteristics. One, as I said, was a high-tech clothing manufacturer. The types of products they would make would be very high-tech mountaineering jackets, ski equipment, sort of waterproofs and so on and so forth. The other organisation was looking at really high fashions. They were supplying into many European high fashion houses within Europe. And what you actually found from that was that there was different things which drove them. One, if you're looking at the high tech product, the lead times were much longer because they would have to actually work with organisations to really secure competitive advantage through, if you like, the capability, the product capability. Whereas in the high fashion industry, that was very much focused on, seeing a trend, moving a trend, designing the item and getting it to market very, very quickly to be able to, if you like, surf that fashion trend.
Okay, one of the really interesting things in the article is where you talk about Guanxi, how relationships are managed in all sorts of ways inside Chinese culture. Could you say a little bit more about the effect of that on your research and your findings?
Well, Guanxi is, if you like, a Chinese networking methodology. We spend a lot of time actually defining this within the actual article, but it's very much built on relationships and, if you like, social favour and business favour within those relationships. It's very different to, if you like, the way that European companies would actually work and European managers would actually work. So there's an awful lot of trust built within that. What we actually found was that for the fashion house, for example, things were very much based on the Guanxi concept. In other words, it was the relationships. That actually gave them an awful lot of agility in the things that they wanted to be able to do, because it was literally they would see a trend, they were able to then rapidly build a relationship, talk to the other companies that they wanted to outsource to, and that would actually enable them to be able to produce and deliver in a very, very short lead time. When you actually contrast that with the other organisation, which was high tech, you can't just base everything just on the trust element. So they had to have a lot more controls and processes in place to enable that to actually happen.
Yes, and one thing you seem to be clearly saying was that when it comes to high tech production, then you almost have to disregard the relationships and go for the specification, whereas make the other work.
Relationships are key, but the emphasis on those relationships will be different. You will also need to have some very important processes in place. I think it's particularly interesting with the events which occurred recently in Thailand, for example. There was a fashion organisation which we were working with and talking to about this. They supply most of the big European retailers, and literally when the floods occurred, it took out a lot of their manufacturing capability in Thailand. through the Guanxi relationships, they were within 3 hours of that occurring, were able to actually contact another manufacturer in China and actually transfer production into that facility the same day that it happened. Now, with a high-tech product, much harder to do because, of course, you also need, if you like, that high-tech manufacturing capability as well.
That's astonishing. So could you finally say a little bit about what you think the benefits for practitioners are in the research that you carried out?
I think this research is particularly interesting. It emphasises, if you like, the importance of managing collaborative relationships and how that impacts on the risk profile of supply chains. It also highlights an awful lot of, if you like, the processes, procedures that can be used for managing outsourcing risk. There's an excellent literature review within it which actually covers all that, so there's plenty of information that practitioners can get up, can very quickly get up to speed with some of the issues and apply them within their organisation, whatever sector.
That's great. And is there any follow-up on this?
We're continuing research in this area, looking at different organisations. So supply chain risk management is a key priority of research here at Cranfield School of Management. And so we're continually sort of looking at this whole area and developing new models and ways of working with companies and just making supply chains far more resilient.
That's great. Thank you very much.